What's going on, everybody? Sorry about the short break I took, but I'm finally back. And today we're going to be talking about Frieza's older brother, Cooler, and how powerful he would be if he showed up in Dragon Ball Super. And we'll also be talking about a few hypothetical situations. Now, speaking of hypothetical, this whole video will be obviously about hypothetical scenario, because Cooler has never appeared in the actual canon series. He's been mentioned in the Daizenshu, even somewhat like Frieza's son. Although he's not actually in the main story, he's only fought non-canon characters or in timelines. So therefore, everything in this video is obviously non-canon and it's just a theory of a hypothetical scenario. So please keep that in mind when watching, although I will be as objective as possible with said hypothetical scenario. So there's not going to be any like weird fanboy theories or anything. I'm going to be as objective as possible. So I hope you guys enjoy. So we should probably start this video off by explaining that Cooler would absolutely shit on Frieza with no difficulty. Now, I don't mean Golden Frieza. I mean, obviously, Cooler versus Frieza, like normal Cooler versus normal Frieza. Like, Final Form Cooler would take Frieza by an arm and a leg and rip him in fucking half, like 1800 style, alright? He would completely dominate him. There'd be no fight whatsoever. In the Cooler movie, Goku, on top of being from like a more powerful non-canon dimension, as I've explained in my Brawly debates, he also fought a Goku that trained after fighting Frieza. He's one of the first people I've ever seen to completely just tank a Kamehameha and then swim through it like a pool of water, and then just decimate Kaioken times 20 Goku like he was nothing, like he was a child almost. And the same thing would happen with Frieza. You treat him just like that, if not worse. This being the same Frieza who in his first form could deliver 10 tons of force, completely obliterating a planet with over 10 times the mass or gravity of Earth, and obliterating it way beyond its gravitational pull and size to the point where it just didn't exist anymore, which would be a small dwarf star level feat. And then we know Frieza gets over 200 times more powerful in his final form. This is confirmed in all the guides. And then we know Cooler, in some of the in less credible guides, it's confirmed to be about 4 times more powerful, or 2.5 times stronger if you're looking at it from certain ways in terms of a power level than his brother in his final form. So basically, Frieza in his final form, which is basically star level-ish, is around 120 through 200. Whereas Cooler is looking more at the 470 range on a power scale. Now, the guide that made this is somewhat weird because it has, like, Super Gogeta at, like, 2.5 billion, which wouldn't really make sense in terms of a multiplier if Goku dominated a 470 million using Super Saiyan, and then you multiply that by, like, 8 times, Super Saiyan 3 Goku would be stronger than Super Gogeta using their logic. So that doesn't really make sense. Although, for Cooler, the level makes a lot more sense than it does for, say, Gogeta. For Gogeta, it's obviously something they just whipped out of their ass and didn't put any thought behind. They didn't even use the official Toei multiplier. But for Cooler, like I said, it makes a lot more sense for him to be at that level. And it's all we know about the power difference between him and Frieza. So we are going to be using it in this video. Now, another interesting thing about Cooler that a lot of people don't actually know is that Cooler has inferior potential to Frieza. The entire reason that he unlocked his final form, or his ascended form, as the final form is more actually like a base form and the other forms are just their suppressed states, is that Cooler was always pegged behind Frieza. Frieza was always like a step ahead of him, kind of like Goku and Vegeta, you know, like Vegeta's like, oh, Kakarot, you're always one step ahead of me, kind of shit. It was kind of like that. So Cooler's like, how am I going to surpass Frieza? And he did it. He found a new form to surpass his brother. Although the potential between them wasn't too massive. They were obviously still in the same league. There wasn't like some entirely different dimension of power, per se. And if you look at games like Xenoverse 2, which are also non-canon, I know, but Cooler's not really canon himself. In Xenoverse 2, Meta Cooler has more potential than Frieza himself. So, for example, Meta Cooler trains with Frieza, and Meta Cooler, without even transforming into a golden state, is actually able to be on par with Golden Frieza without even transforming. So it does make sense that base Cooler and base Frieza do have similar potentials to each other. I mean, they are brothers, after all. They share the same genetic line. It just makes sense that maybe Frieza would be slightly more powerful. Now, we give the hypothetical scenario that Cooler heard his brother died by a Super Saiyan, and instead of saying, "Oh man, fuck that guy, I'm gonna whoop his ass," he's like, "All right, maybe I should, you know, fuck Frieza. I didn't like him anyway. He's gone. Cool. I'm gonna keep doing me, but maybe I should get ready for just in case a Super Saiyan tries to whoop my ass or something." So Cooler starts maybe getting on his grind a little bit. And then he hears his brother comes back, more powerful than ever. So powerful he can fight the guy that just shook the universe, God Goku. And then he still got his ass beat. So Cooler's like, damn, I really need to step into gear here. So maybe Cooler trains for the next year or so until the Tournament of Power. And that's when Whis suggests to Goku and Vegeta, hey, maybe instead of going to pluck Frieza from his cocoon tree thing in hell, we should just get his stronger older brother who has been training to actually fight you guys. So this is where the interesting part is how powerful would Cooler be if he trained for intensively for a year to fight the guy that he felt shake the entire universe. So let's discuss that. Now obviously this theory will be using, of course, Cooler is just like pretty much has the same potential as Frieza, maybe slightly less, you know, give or take. We can't really, I don't want to use too much headcanon, so we're just gonna say he has vaguely the same amount. He might actually just have more in general if you look at the fact that his final form would have more potential than his base form. In about 4 through 6 months, I'm gonna go with 6 months to lowball here. Some people tell me it's 4 months, but we're gonna lowball and say Frieza trained for 6 months. So in about 4 through 6 months, Frieza went from arguably star level to arguably universal in power, maybe even greater. And that increase is massive. NASA has recently confirmed that the universe is possibly 10 times larger than we thought it was. So if Frieza went from 1 time star level to 1 septillion times star level, because there'd be that many stars in the galaxy, in the universe, and in fact we're ignoring completely the spaces between all of these, the planets, the nebulas, the dark matter. We're ignoring everything. We're just saying stars only. Frieza would still bare minimum be 1 septillion times stronger in 6 months, and so would Cooler, although Cooler can transform on top of that and increase his power by 4 times, and maybe 2.5 if you use Frieza's highballed power level in some of the guides. We have another interesting conundrum here. Does the training apply linearly, or does it apply exponentially every 6 months they train? So for example, would Cooler training for an extra 6 months, would that just add another septillion, or would it multiply by another septillion? So I actually did the math on this, so it's more like linear growth, and the Frieza race is just naturally like universal in power. If it's a linear growth, then it would just be 2 septillion after the full year of training. But if it was for a full exponential increase, then it would in fact be quindecillion. It would be a 1 quindecillion times increase, which is absolutely phenomenal. It'd be stronger than anything we've ever seen in the series so far, including Super Saiyan Blue Vegeta and then some. And then on top of that, he can just multiply that with his final ascended form. I want to hear your guys' opinion. Do you think the training just... Do you think the Frieza race is just naturally, like, somewhat, like, universal, so that's why they were, like, easily able to reach that power? Or do you think it's actually an exponential increase every time they train? And, of course, you have Metacooler, and Metacooler, if Metacooler can use his golden form on top of the Meta state, he'd basically be, like, the equivalent of a revival of Frieza-era Vegeta, because his base form is stronger than Super Saiyan Blue, and then you'd stack Golden, which, as we know, has a higher multiplier than Super Saiyan Blue does by a good portion. So, he'd be stronger than even Super Saiyan Blue Vegeta, which is actually insane to think about as well. So, no matter what, if Cooler came back and did any form of training like Frieza did, possibly greater because he'd have more time to get away with it, he would, in fact, be probably the most dominant force in Dragon Ball Super, said the Gods of Destruction and the Angels, because obviously we can't say how strong they are in Zeno and all that. We're talking about the normal fighters. So if he came back for the Tournament of Power, whooped in a year of training with his final form, or metal form, he would absolutely kill everyone, no difficulty. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed. Hope you learned something. Until next time.
Where's it at? Nah, jump on. Where's your... Be gone!